I'm really curious to know what books and series were very impactful for you growing up. Either books that you loved, books that you read with your friends, books that you read over and over, books that informed your worldview, books that were just interesting to you as a child. When I was growing up, a series of unfortunate events was definitely up there. Me and my cousins would all ride the bus together, and on the way to school and on the way back, we would like read little sections aloud to each other. We were also always in a race, my younger cousins with my older cousins, of who could finish the new books as they came out first. And I remember my mom, she worked abroad, so I didn't see her that often. But when she would come home, she often would stop at the airport and pick up the newest book if it was available and bring it as like a present to me. And I would just be so over the moon excited. I loved the series so much. The movie was important to me, but it wasn't like, if anyone's seen the movie, you know why. And the show sadly was after my time, but I've been wanting to watch it because I loved these books. I also remember James and the Giant Peach, probably a little younger than when I was reading A Series of Unfortunate Events, but this was also a book that just meant a lot to me and then I read again and again and again. A series that I definitely hardly ever see mentioned that was really formative to my childhood was The Secrets of Darun. And I don't understand why, because it was quite a best-selling popular book series from Scholastic. It had like 30 or 40 volumes. It's definitely a younger grade level. I would say that I actually was kind of not in my appropriate grade level for a while. I was like, I think third through fifth grade reading at maybe a second, third grade level. And then right around sixth grade, something happened, everything kicked in, and then I surpassed my peers. It was very odd. Like I had a few years of being in the remedial grade level, like I had to take special classes. And then as soon as reading really clicked for me, then I was like reading at a much higher level than my peers. But those years when I was really struggling, like I loved The Secrets of Darun, and I would beg my parents to get me more Secrets of Darun books because I just loved when they would read them to me. I loved thinking about the stories, and I was just so fascinated. Definitely another one that was really big for me was Percy Jackson. I loved the movie, I loved the book series. I remember listening to the audiobook on my family's like big clunky desktop shared family computer, downloading it off of like iTunes or I don't know, wherever I got audiobooks back then. And I was just so thrilled because the audiobook narrator does quite a good job with this first book. And I was just overwhelmed with joy. Like I remember feeling giddy at just how excited I was. I also remember as I grew older and the next books in the series came out, going to the bookstore with friends and just feeling like euphoria as soon as I could get like the next book. Now, another book that I remember being really formative to me was Chasing Redbird. My third grade class, we did this thing where we would read aloud like a paragraph at a time. Like I'm sure it was like pulling teeth, but we would go around paragraph by paragraph for each student. We read this entire book aloud to each other. It was a really beautiful and wholesome experience. Now, this was right around the time, I believe it was the same year I read Holes by Louis Sachar for the first time. And this is one of my favorite books from childhood. I absolutely love the Disney movie with Shia LaBeouf. And Sigourney Weaver, I mean, incredible. It's such a just stellar story, and I remember as a child being absolutely obsessed, and I would just want to read it again and again. I was kind of a nerd at recess too. Like I had friends, but I preferred during recess to play for the first few minutes, and then I would want to go just sit alone and read my book. And I remember reading Holes over and over again because I just was so fascinated by Stanley's character. Now, of course, a very big formative book series for me was the Harry Potter books. I remember these are kind of the books where I first learned how to read in a practical sense. It didn't really click for me. Like all of elementary school is kind of ups and downs, peaks and valleys with reading. But my mother would read these books aloud to me as a child. And I, of course, loved the movies. And I have very particular memories of elementary school, I believe, where I would come home from school and there would be like the countdown clock on whatever movie was about to come out. I remember in particular when the third movie was about to come out, there was that song, Double Bubble, Toil and Trouble, for the preview. And you could go to the Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban website, and every day it would say like, this is how many hours left until the movie comes out. And I would get so excited to come home from school and check the countdown clock. Like what a little nerd was I. But of course, loved these books. I've read them many times into adulthood. Such a beautiful series, and so tragic and heartbreaking about the author, who I vehemently disagree with, but I still love these books. Now, the last one I'll share, because this video is getting a little long, is the BFG. This was a really, really big influence on me. I think of all the Roald Dahl books, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is up there, but the BFG, maybe it's like a tie between the BFG and also The Witches. Like, I very vividly remember checking both of these books out of my library. And I remember for the BFG, it was kind of an advanced grade level. I think I was in third grade, and my teacher had to vouch for me. He was like, "No, Alex can do this. Like, he struggles." Like, even my librarian was like, "You're not smart enough for this, babe." But I just remember loving that book so much. And that was back when we had AR points. So it was like, if you read this book, you take this little quiz, and if you pass enough questions on the quiz, then you get a certain amount of points. And then, of course, there's like little prizes. So it's like at the end of the year, if you have like the most points, you get this big prize. It's probably like a big stuffed animal or candy or something. But I remember being very motivated by that. And I had a lot of AR points, but I also would try to sometimes take quizzes on books I hadn't read. Like, I remember taking a quiz on Upton Sinclair's The Jungle Book, which I had never read, but I had seen the movie, and it was like very difficult. I think I failed. And I remember the librarian scolding me and being like, "It's very wrong to take quizzes on books you haven't read." And I was like, "I'm so sorry. Like, am I going to jail?" I was like so paranoid as a little kid. I was like, "Wait, I'm so sorry. I didn't read it. I didn't read it." But yeah, this has been a little roundup of books that meant a lot to me as a child. It would be interesting to reread some of these as an adult, but I would love to know what books were meaningful to you as a kid. And have you ever returned to any of them? I think as an adult, I mean, I've read Harry Potter, I've reread Holes. I can't say that I've read any of these others, though. It'd be so interesting, because especially the BFG, the Big Friendly Giant, I would just love to spend more time with that character.